Before we get started with today's video, I have an announcement to make. After years of telling other people's stories, I finally released one of my own. My novel Eternal Reign is available now in both ebook and paperback format for those of you who are like me and prefer to collect physical media. You can grab a copy right now on Amazon through the link in the description of this video. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. If there's one thing that we know about Tataru, it's that she's a businesswoman who never misses an opportunity to make money or to punish someone for wasting hers, and she's already set up her boutique in Old Charlian, complete with an assistant named Magina, who I doubt gets paid all that much. She's happy that the Warrior of Light stopped by because Tataru is starting a new project that she could use some help with. You haven't exactly agreed, but Tataru shows up and volunteers you because that's what everyone does to the Warrior of Light. What Tataru has done is gotten together all the resources she needs to mass produce the new design she's made with guilds all around the world, but right now her clientele is limited to adventurers who pass by and whatever random Charlian decides to shop there. That's not nearly enough. She wants international business, and since the Scions prove that having the whole world work together is actually possible, she thinks building the biggest trade network ever isn't that far-fetched. But none of that will happen overnight, and it will take a lot of work. And the best way to network is by using someone who already has a lot of connections, that being the Warrior of Light, of course. Everyone knows that the Warrior of Light is an expert at picking the right gear for a job, so getting you to promote some of the samples that Tataru's made would be perfect. She claims that she'll cover all of your aetherite expenses, but I'm pretty sure we're all positive that's a lie. Lying or not, that doesn't stop her from sending you off to the first stop on this list, Limsa Lamensa. She wants you to meet up with Sakar, the leader of the Bloody Executioners. After that, she wants you to go to Gridania and get Arun Senna on board with using her clothing. Lastly, she wants you to head to Ul'dah and talk to Pippin, who's been a good friend of hers for a while and has quite a few connections of his own. And since he spends a lot of his time fighting, him and his allies could likely use her gear as well. She's already got their samples packed and ready to go, so the Warrior of Light heads off while Tataru takes care of some business of her own. Tracking down Sakar is not exactly difficult, and even though his crew has been busy with a lot of shipping jobs, he doesn't mind talking to you, as long as you're not there to tell him about any more world-ending events. Being a part of the preparations for the final days let him know just how short-sighted he had been during his pirate days, but since they've been carting the Kobol's metalworks all over the world, he feels better about what his crew is doing. And before you even have a chance to ask, he says that he'll happily promote whatever it is that you're trying to sell. Once he hears that the stuff came from Tataru and has the Warrior of Light seal of approval, he gets half a mind to sell them himself instead of advertising them for her. And since people can only get to Old Charlian by sea, he could make a killing if he gets a contract as the only person who ships Tataru's wares. That was exactly what Tataru had planned for, so since that part went exactly how she wanted, it's off to Gridania you go to get started with Phase 2. Tracking down Arun Senna takes a little bit of work since the Seed Seer's been traveling back and forth between nearby settlements a lot, but you manage to catch him when he gets back to the city. He's curious about the giant sack you're carrying around, and once he hears that Tataru has gotten clothes made with a mixture of styles from different types of craftsmen, he gets interested, especially since he's been trying to do something similar on his own, once he gets the other Seed Seer's approval, that is. Gridania, let's just say, hasn't been the most welcoming place to anyone that's not an elemental, but after seeing how much good could come from a united world, Arun Senna wants to change that. Tataru's clothes are another example of what that unity can create, so he would happily promote her company's creations while he goes on his quest to understand more of the world. He may know elementals pretty well, but his knowledge of people is pretty bad. He still has to run all of this by his sister, so he'll get back to Tataru after that, which means your work in Gridania is done, and it's off to Ul'dah you go. You find Pippin at the Colosseum, and hearing that Tataru is passing out samples of her high-quality gear falls right in line with Pippin's own plans for the Immortal Flames. After everything that he's been through, he finally understands that Rauban gave him his sword as a sign of his faith in him, and being entrusted with something so precious helps remind him of why he fights, and helps him fight harder. He thinks that every soldier of the Immortal Flames deserves weapons and armor that is more than just another tool. Their equipment should remind them of the people they're trying to protect, and it being crafted by people all across the star fits that plan perfectly. Honestly, this works out a little too well for Tataru, which makes me think the woman has spies watching all of these people so she can hear their secrets and use them to make her money. Pippin decides to wear her gear for a few fights in the Colosseum to test it out, but he's not one to take stuff for free, so he gives you a necklace that he had been planning on giving to Tataru for a while. It's extremely important to her because when she was young, her family had gone bankrupt after her dad's business had failed, and all of their possessions had been sold off to pay their debts. One of those lost possessions was her mother's necklace. Tataru has been searching for it for years but couldn't find it, but Pippin recently found it tossed in a pile of old Colosseum prizes. It's pretty badly damaged, but he figures Tataru would want it back anyway. Still, it should be restored before you give it to her, and the Warrior of Light is fine with hunting down a few gemstones to make the necklace special, so Pippin takes it to the goldsmiths to get it cleaned up before he has it shipped to Old Charlian. The package beats you there, and after you tell Magina what it is and what you plan to do with it, she's all for helping you out and helping keep it secret from Tataru. Her other employee wants to help out as well, and she thinks it'll be a good idea to get each of her new business partners to offer something to add to the necklace. That way it'll serve as a memento for both her past and her current accomplishments. That's a really good idea, but it's gonna be hard to keep it a secret if they keep talking about it right when Tataru is walking up. Fortunately, you divert her with the good news that Pippin plans on putting her gear on all of the Immortal Flames. It's a good start to her plans, but it's not the end of what she wants to do. She has more places that she wants to send you, and as for those, we'll talk about them next time. Tataru's business has been doing well, and in typical Tataru fashion, she's left some more stuff for the Warrior of Light to deliver. She would have been there to hand the Warrior of Light her orders in person, but the woman is currently out in Idleshire doing some business of her own with Rowena, Final Fantasy XIV's greediest woman. There's two places she wants you to take her stuff to this time. Amanalaine de Fortin has spread word of Tataru's boutique all throughout Ishgard, and some people are interested in seeing a few samples. Amanalaine will work out the details, but he's probably doing that because he wants to tag along with you to pester a very specific woman. Magina's made a little progress on that special project for Tataru while you were away too. She's gotten her hands on a very nice sapphire that she thinks will look great as a centerpiece in a necklace, once you find a few things to go along with it. She figures you'll be able to find some things on your trip, so you grab the packages and head off to Ishgard where Amanalaine catches up to you immediately. He says he has two people who are extremely interested in Tataru's products, and one of them of course is Laniette. Amanalaine has been doing everything he could to spend time with the woman since Heavensward, and he still hasn't caught on to the fact that she's just not that into him. One day she's gonna throw him off of one of those floating islands, but none of that's the Warrior of Light's problem as long as the woman takes Tataru's samples first. Laniette's always happy to see you since she knows how busy you are, and you actually showed up at the perfect time. The relations with the Vanu Vanu have been getting better over time, but some recent events have caused them to have to rethink where they deploy their weapons. Before she can tell you what those events are, Amanalaine comes running up dressed like a warrior trying to impress the woman. He says that Sicard gave him some of Tataru's gear, probably because he knew the man would use them to make a fool out of himself in front of the woman. Since Laniette is a soldier, she's not exactly happy that the man is wasting good armor that could be used to protect actual warriors, and she wants him to take it off and give it back to Sicard so he can deliver it to someone who can actually use it. Well, it turns out that he lied about Sicard giving him a sample of the gear in the first place, and he'd actually stolen it from the man, which is doubly stupid since Sicard is a pirate who is prone to shooting people. Since the two of them are friends, he'll probably shoot him in somewhere like the leg, but Laniette hopes that Amanalaine isn't that unprofessional with the other potential clients he's supposedly found for Tataru. He hasn't been even remotely unprofessional with them because those clients are the Red Bill Sky Pirates, and Leofard wouldn't just shoot him in the leg for messing with him. Laniette's shocked that the man even knows the Red Bills since they don't exactly travel in the same social circles, but his house has a wide range of contacts, including the pirates. Ironically enough, Sky Pirates were the problem that Laniette was getting ready to tell you about. Some pirates have been attacking trading vessels, and they've even robbed the Skysteel manufactory in Ishgard. It's unlikely that Leofard's crew is behind the thefts, but the Warrior of Light and Amanalaine head to the Red Bill's base to see if they know anything about it. Your old friends are happy to see that you're still alive and well after the whole saving the star thing, but even Leofard knows that fighting monsters isn't nearly as hard as merchant work. What he doesn't know is how you managed to get yourself roped into it, but it does work to his advantage, since the main reason he was interested in Tataru's wares was because it would bring you to him. That's not the only reason, because he still wants the stuff, but he did want to see you. He has a job that could benefit from both your skills and Tataru's very high quality equipment. He's willing to pay you for your help, of course, so the Warrior of Light agrees to join him on the job if he gives some parts for Tataru's necklace in exchange. Since you're all in, he leaves the explaining to Stacia. A group of thieves have been pretending to be sky pirates and have been robbing traders in the area. They call themselves the Monstrous Cockatoos, which sounds wrong in every way you can imagine. And other than giving the pirates a bad name, they made things personal by stealing the parts that the Red Bills had got to build the replacement for the Ramil, Leofard's airship that got destroyed in the fight with Diabolos. Once they had realized they'd robbed the Red Bills, they ran off to Idleshire to hide after stashing the stuff somewhere. The plan is to go to Idleshire and find them, and beat them up until they tell you where the stuff is. Since the Red Bills plan on dealing with the criminals, Amanda Lane heads off to let Laniat know what's going on so she can be ready to arrest the thieves once Leofard's done beating on them. The pirate had never expected to team up with the Knights, but he doesn't really care as long as he gets his stuff back, so you all head off on your second, much less dangerous mission with the Red Bills. Since he's pretty well known, Leofard swaps into some of Tataru's clothes, which he does admit are pretty comfortable, before he lets you know what your part in the plan is going to be. The fake pirates have been doing a good job of hiding, so Leofard wants to spread some rumors about a black market merchant who's trying to buy some very fine, not necessarily legal items, while Leofard follows you around and plays the role of your bodyguard. Since peddlers and adventurers talk a lot, they might be able to point you in the right direction. They have a disguise for you too, since it's not like people wouldn't recognize the Warrior of Light, so you get changed, and then you and Leofard head off. Some of the adventurers you talk to are nice enough to warn you that trying to find sky pirates while looking like you have money is a good way to get robbed. But since that's the entire goal, you keep doing what you're doing. It doesn't take long for you all to reach the top of the rumor mill, right alongside news about some big shot who started working with the fake pirates. Whoever the person is, Leofard's not worried, and since word of your money is spreading, the two of you walk around town until the Cockatoos find you. It doesn't take them long to track you down, but almost all of their arrogance leaves when they realize that they've come face to face with Leofard. Almost all of it. See, they've partnered up with someone even more dangerous than Leofard, and that person turns out to be Rodlia and the Talons, a much more brutal group of sky pirates than the Red Bills. Her and Leofard have been competitors long before the little Void Ark expedition, but she'll forget their differences if he joins her crew. She'll even give him back his ship parts. Obviously, he'd never join her, but he doesn't plan on leaving without the parts, as long as the thieves haven't damaged them by leaving them in wind-aspected territory, which unfortunately it seems like they did. According to Leofard, they had some specialized corrupted crystals in them that would have been made useless if they came in contact with wind sprites. Rodlia gives the Cockatoos a look that says they're dead if they damage the stuff, but the pirate says there aren't many wind sprites on Providence Hill, so it'll be fine. The things would have been fine regardless, since everything Leofard said was made up. He just wanted them to say where they had put his stuff so he could send Utata to go and get it. He's kinda surprised that Rodlia didn't know he was bluffing, since any airship that had parts that couldn't handle the wind would be extremely useless. Since bribing him is off the table, Rodlia decides to resort to beating Leofard until he submits, which could have worked, which is why he brought the Warrior of Light along. Once she reveals herself, the Cockatoos do the only thing that they can, and that's run for their lives. Since dealing with the Cockatoos turned out to be a waste of time, Rodlia decides that she'll deal with Leofard another day, so she takes her talons and leaves, but she'll obviously cause problems later. But since everything's been taken care of, it's back to the Red Bills base you go. Utata manages to get all of the airship parts back, so it won't be long before Leofard's ship is finally ready, and the Cockatoos have been taken into custody, so that little problem's been dealt with too. Leofard's not a thief, so all of the other stolen goods should end up back where they're supposed to, which means your work is done. Surprisingly enough, Tataru shows up with an old Ellison, and she's as surprised to see you as you are to see her. She had been in Idleshire at the same time that you were there, and Leofard had hunted her down since she seems to have connections everywhere. He was looking for someone specific, and Tataru was able to find the man. The Ellison's name is Duramert, and he's a famous painter. A lot of the items that had been stolen were incredible paintings, all done by him. But Leofard wanted him for more than just to return his property, since he was the one that had painted the portrait of Ramil that Leofard has on his wall. And the woman also just so happened to be his daughter, so technically that makes Duramert Leofard's grandfather since his daughter had adopted the boy. The man was also a lord, but he gave up his title to his son when he started painting full time. In other words, the man has led a busy life. He's always been hard to track down, but Leofard wanted him there to see the new ship that he's dedicated to Ramil fly for the first time. Something that the man wouldn't miss for the world, since he's just as proud of the man Leofard has become as his daughter would have been. With the ship done, you all fly out to test it. While it was great hanging out with the Redbills again, they head off on another adventure, but they promise that if Tataru needs them to deal with any more criminals, they'll come back. Tataru's not one to take a break, and she has some business to take care of in Ishgard with the painter. Since you're someone who's been around a bit, the painter wants you to come with him and to tell him about the adventures you've been on with Leofard, who flies by and tosses the promised gift for Tataru out of his ship for you. After chatting with the painter, he decides to hang out in Ishgard for a while to paint, so the Warrior of Light heads back to Sharlayan, where Magina examines Leofard's gift, which turns out to be a relic from the city of Ma'ak. It's a magic-imbued leather strap that's supposedly unbreakable, which will be perfect for Tataru's necklace, but you'll still need to add more to it in the future. And since Tataru will definitely call on you again, you'll have plenty of time to hunt down more stuff. Tataru's business has grown quite a bit thanks to your help, of course, and as to be expected, Magina could use your help again. Since the business has been growing, it's gotten the attention of a foreign merchant who dropped by and made a business proposition. That particular merchant was Hancock from the East Aldenar Trading Company, and since both you and Tataru know the man and his shady business practices well, Magina's already been told that he can't be trusted at all. But if you own a business, sometimes to grow you'll have to deal with some unsavory individuals, and Hancock's knowledge of the Hingan markets is exactly what Tataru needs if she wants to expand her business into the Far East. Because of that, she's decided to negotiate with him, but for some reason he wants the Warrior of Light to show up at the meeting in Kugane. Since it's to help Tataru, you agree to go, plus it's the only way you'll be able to get more parts for Tataru's necklace. Because no one respects the Warrior of Light's time, you actually have to wait for Tataru and Hancock to show up. Once they get there, Tataru wants to know exactly why Hancock demanded the Warrior of Light come to the meeting, because he's clearly plotting something. Of course he is, but he'll tell you about it after he lets you hear his business proposition. His company recently opened a clothing shop in Kugane, but the locals aren't really liking their designs. The plan was to promote the work of some weavers from Ul'dah, but the place has a different culture from Kugane, and a part of that is a completely different fashion sense. So Hancock decided to switch things up and make traditional Hingan clothes, but with the silks from Ul'dah. But that plan fell through when Hancock's crafter got sick. He thought about giving up, then he remembered Tataru's boutique and the fact that she's made clothes that fit the Eastern style, namely the samurai and ninja armor sets. Hancock figures that if the East Aldenar Trading Company puts her gear on display, it will show the people that the Western traders can make clothes that the locals like. And since Hancock heard that Tataru wants to get her business up and running in the East, he figured that a deal would work out for both of them. Tataru's interested, which means there's some things to talk about, but what she doesn't understand is why Hancock wanted the Warrior of Light. He actually didn't want you for anything dealing with the business, at least not directly. He ran into the Four Lords, and I have no idea how you just run into four gods by accident, but when he saw them they wanted to get in touch with you. And since getting an IOU from the Four Lords could be very useful, he said he would track you down. He's not stupid. He knew that any request sent by the East Aldenar Trading Company would be looked at sideways by the Warrior of Light if she didn't just throw it in the trash. So Hancock just lied and said that he needed you to help with Tataru because he's well aware of how willing you are to help your friends without question. He does plan on paying you a nice amount for your help, and he's already let the Four Lords know that you are on your way to the area. They want you to meet them in Sakazuki when you get the chance, and since they say it's an urgent matter, you head off while Tataru handles the dangerous task of negotiating with Hancock. Soroban, Seiryu, Suzaku, and Byaku all show up to see you, and after Soroban complains a bit about the torturous training he's been put through by Genbu's spirit, a spirit that's still living inside of him, you all start to talk about what they really wanted to tell you about. While sneaking around in Kugane, an Auspice saw a man dressed like Tenzin and going around claiming to be Tenzin's long-lost descendant. He was using Tenzin's name to sell fake Lucky Charms, and the Lords, especially Suzaku, are not happy about it. She wants to burn the man alive, soul and all, and Seiryu wants to do even worse to him, especially since he claims to have the Four Lords on speed dial. While it's all very disrespectful, Genbu doesn't think things have reached the burned alive level just yet, but it does need to be put to a stop. They haven't exactly dealt with people on a regular basis, so they don't know how to deal with the imposter without permanently dealing with the imposter. That's why they called on you. They want you to find another way to deal with the man, but to do that you need to find him, and the Lords want to tag along. Granted, if they came in their normal forms they would cause people to panic. They don't exactly fit in, but they have the power to change their shape to make themselves less conspicuous, And because they don't know what stealthy actually means, they turn human-sized, then put on rabbit and chicken costumes like that won't make people notice them. Soroban doesn't think the disguises will work since they're just stupid, but Byakko says that they couldn't just turn into human form because some people have the power to see through that trick, and that will lead to a lot of problems, so the horrible costumes will have to do. It's not hard to find the con man. He has a whole crowd of people around him, and he is wearing a replica of Tenzin's armor that isn't exactly that hard to come by. He claims to also have Tenzin's flaming sword, the Phoenix Blade, which is an outright lie since the Four Lords have kept the blade in the temple since Tenzin died. Some of the people aren't buying it, so the imposter calls on his Four Lords, which is a red Kojin, a regular woman, an Aura man, and a house cat. The only part of this insane display that Byakko is actually mad about is the fact that the Tenzin impersonator didn't at least hire a cat boy to play him. The audience thinks it's dumb too, but they believe the lie sort of when the man says that they're hiding their normal form. Granted, some people think the lords would have chosen to look a little less stupid on their public outings, but even Soroban sees that the impersonator made his Four Lords look less ridiculous than the real ones decided to dress. The whole display is making the real lords move closer and closer to just killing the man, but one person in the crowd mentions the fact that there was no mention of Tenzin even having a kid before he died, so he can't possibly be his descendant. The imposter has an answer for that too. He claims that Suzaku actually had a kid for Tenzin, and her reaction to that comment proves that whether she had a kid for Tenzin or not, they definitely touched naughty bits a time or two. That is all the crowd needs to hear to decide to buy the man's charms, and it also makes the real Four Lords decide to scare the imposter straight so he'll never slander their names again. But since none of the lords plan on taking the easy route of dragging the con man to the bottom of the ocean without your handy little underwater breathing blessing, you'll have to find a clever way to expose the man's lies. Since he was quick on his feet when it came to countering people's arguments, that might be a challenge. But of course, the easiest solution is oftentimes the best one. So everyone opts for just revealing that they are the Four Lords, with the Warrior of Light claiming to be Tenzin's actual descendant, since she is in a way. He'll definitely confess when he sees that, so Byakko and Soroban head back to the temple to retrieve some things, while the Warrior of Light, Suzaku, and Seiryu go to track the imposter down. Some people saw him heading to a bridge in the city, and when you get there, a man did see him pass, and he still can't believe there are so many people who actually believe that man is really Tenzin's descendant. He has no idea where he went, but your old and definitely not friend Namazu Gyoto sees you. He knows exactly who you're talking about, and he gives you a name probably so Lise won't kick him again. The Tenzin impersonator's name is Ishu, but he's not the mastermind behind this little scheme. That honor falls to a man who you've dealt with a time or two, Kageyama. His hands are always in something unsavory. Last time he tried to block trade with Ul'dah because he didn't want to deal with foreign merchant competition, and he did it in a way that should have gotten him killed. I'll link that story in the description so you can check it out later. It turns out Ishu is a very skilled weaver who was really focused on his craft, which makes it odd that he partnered up with Kageyama. Gyoto knows where the pair meet up, and he's willing to share that info for a little bit of money. The Four Lords are super rich, and they're fine with giving him some money if he heads to their temple. They don't make the place sound all that inviting, but Gyoto's not all that smart, so he doesn't care. He's still going, but he does keep his word and lets you all know that they're meeting on the Isle of Beko. So you don't miss the meeting, Suzaku sends a messenger to the temple to tell Byakko and Soroban where you're headed, and the three of you head off to the Isle. You all spot the pair, and it immediately becomes clear that Ishu isn't scamming people of his own free will. He's genuinely terrified of what the Four Lords will do to him if they ever get word of what he's been up to, but Kageyama won't let him quit. He gave the man work after he lost his job, which kept his family from being homeless, and because of the debt he owes, if Ishu quits, Kageyama will make sure that everyone knows about the scam, which will make sure that Ishu never gets another job. The man is trapped, and Kageyama knows it. What he doesn't realize is that Seiryu, Suzaku, and the Warrior of Light all heard who the true criminal is, and now they know who to punish. You all charge out and reveal yourselves, and once Soroban and Byakko show up, they toss the Warrior of Light the real Phoenix Blade and reveal themselves in a way that would make absolutely anybody wet themselves. Seeing you holding the Phoenix Blade with the real Four Lords, who are all powered up like they're getting ready to attack, makes Kageyama beg for his life and run away while promising to never take any of your names in vain again. Ishu wasn't scared in the least. He actually seemed excited to see the Lords in the flesh, and the whole incident reminded Byakko of the time where Tenzin made him pretend to be a wild animal to run a lot of people out of a doomed village. He thinks your acting is way better than Tenzin's, which made the whole thing a lot of fun. Ishu apologizes for his part in all of this, but since they know why he did it, and they've all made bad decisions of their own in their life, the Lord's forgiven. And since he is nearly a master at sewing, Soroban gets an idea. However, what he's planning isn't something that the other lords are all that interested in, so they get ready to head back to the temple. But before they leave, they do want to know what Ishu will do now that he doesn't have to play Tenzin anymore. Even though he was being forced to scam people, he does plan on confessing to the Sekisegumi when he gets back to Kugane, which will get him a bit of jail time, but after that he'll take his trade up again and work to pay back everyone he scammed. That's good, noble, and stupid. He should be putting all of the blame on Kageyama since he forced him to do it, but lucky for him, Soroban's already called Hancock and Tataru. The man needed someone to make his clothes, and he's more than willing to hire Ishu right away, and he's already talked to the Sekisegumi about the situation. Ishu won't have to go to jail as long as he helps them bring down Kageyama. That's a deal the man is more than happy with, and with Hancock being a man of his word once you get him to give it, he hasn't forgotten about the Warrior of Light's payment. She wants something for Tataru's necklace, which he's more than happy to provide. Everything's been solved, but Tataru does want to know why the four lords called on Hancock instead of her when they needed help, since she was involved with the whole Koryu incident. Genbu figured that she was busy, and since she couldn't exactly fight, she might not have been able to help out all that much. But it all worked out well in the end, so they head home while the rest of you do the same. Ishu gets started with his work immediately, and after he gives you the last outfit he made before his involuntary servitude started, as well as the item Hancock promised, Tataru lets you know that she and Hancock made a deal, and from this day onward the two of them will be working together in Kugane, and she wants you to let Megina know the details. When you tell the woman about the deal, she's not surprised, but she is surprised that Hancock sent a very rare black pearl to be a part of Tataru's necklace. She knew he was rich, but she didn't know he was that rich, and working with Tataru, that means he'll only get richer. Tataru apparently ended up telling Megina how the Warrior of Light helped free Worlet alongside Gaius, which made the woman decide that you're the perfect person to help out with her next mission. Tataru's boutique is about to send some samples of their military equipment to Worlet's temporary government, and since Gaius is the man running things over there, you would be the perfect person to bring the gear to him and convince him that it's worth buying. It has been a while since the Warrior of Light has checked on the people of Turncliffe, so she's fine heading over there. Plus, it'll give her the chance to look for another item to put on Tataru's necklace. Gaius was not expecting to see you, but you showed up right in the middle of a situation that's a little more important than getting new gear for the army. Somebody stole the G-Savior Mark II, which is no small feat since the thing is a massive Gundam hooked to a large platform. There was a witness, and Gaius was just on his way to talk to her. Since you're there, he wouldn't mind having you tag along. The witness is Avelina, and while she was doing some work on the Mark I, she saw a very suspicious looking man moving around the Mark II. She confronted him, but when he turned around it was Valence Vanvaro, which is very impossible because no one can survive getting squeezed until they pop by the diamond weapon before getting yeeted to oblivion. He is very dead, but Avelina saw what she saw. Turns out she wasn't the only one to see the dead man either. Some of the children who had been Valence's former prisoners had saw the man too. He came to them and he told them to tell him where the G-Warrior was. They had found it while wandering in places that they weren't supposed to be, so they told him, mainly because they're scared of the man, and for good reason. Gaius doesn't blame them, but he's not convinced that Valence has come back from the dead. However, whoever took the Mark II is a problem, and Gaius wouldn't mind having your help with the hunt. You're all for it, since joining the chase means that you get to pilot the Mark I again. Once you're on board, Gaius sets the autopilot to head toward Garlemald. He doesn't think the thief is really Valence, but if it is him or somebody pretending to be, then he's likely taking the Mark II to use it to take over Garlemald, since that was what Valence had wanted the diamond weapon for. Gaius wants you to use the G-Warrior to stop the man. He'd do it himself, but he's not too proud to admit that you're a better pilot than he is. When the sensors pick up the Mark II, it proves that Gaius guessed right. Normally he'd just have you shoot the thing down, but if you blow up the Mark II, there won't be any way to identify the body, and he wants to know who the thief is. That means you'll have to get close and take out the engines. At least that would be the only way under normal circumstances. Nero has a better idea, and he hacks into you and Gaius' conversation to tell you a better way to deal with the situation. This is the first time Gaius has seen Nero since the whole Ultima weapon incident, but he'd heard how Nero had joined the Ironworks and works under Sid. Nero only sort of works under the man since most of the time he's stealing the man's money and doing his own thing with it. and one of his little pet projects that Sid knew nothing about was building a weapon he calls the Anti-G that was made for the sole purpose of taking down the G-Warrior. He had figured someone would steal one of Sid's toys, and he had built the thing for that occasion. I'm pretty sure he made the weapon because he planned on stealing one of the Gundams, and he would have used it to shoot down whichever one he didn't take when Sid came after him. He loaded it on your ship before you headed out, and he wants you to use it to prove that what he made is better than what Sid made. Miro's anti-G missiles knock out the propulsion systems on the Mark II, but what they didn't plan for was the pilot detaching from the containment unit and flying off. The Warrior of Light's not willing to let the guy get away, so she detaches the Mark I and proceeds to knock the man out of the sky, which makes him crash down in the same spot where the diamond weapon had crashed when you fought it. The man who crawls out of the ruined Mark II does look like Valens, but when Gaius knocks his visor off, his eyes are very different. The man keeps up the lie that he's actually Valens until he realizes that Gaius is gonna kill him. Then he admits that his name is Procopius, and he served under Valens. He was so devoted to the man that he bought a Fantasia potion off the Mog station so he could look like him and serve as a decoy for any assassins who tried to kill the guy. He had stolen the Mark II so he could use it to help the people of Garlemald go back to their glory days and get back to conquering the world, since only Garleans are fit to rule. He's just as crazy as Valens, so Gaius knocks him out. He should have just killed him, but he's being soft for some reason. Either way, you've gotten the Mark II back, so you all head back to Turncliffe. Since the other work is done, Gaius wants to know why you of all people are delivering clothes. The fact that you're willing to advertise the stuff is enough for him to trust the quality. But after you tell him how persuasive Tataru can be, he plans on being on guard when he starts talking prices with the woman. That was all you really came there to do. But before you head back, Gaius wants you to go and let the kids know that Valens is well and truly dead. Soothing the nerves of the kids is a worthy mission, so you head off to handle it. When you tell them about the fake Valens, they're happy to know that it's really all over, but they think it's a good idea to not tell Allie about what happened. They've all heard about the terrible stuff that Valens did to her, and they don't want to dredge up old memories. She's already been depressed enough as it is. They had an idea about how to make her feel better about life in general, but they'll need your help because of course they will. Allie wants a portrait of her family and they want to have one painted for her, but other than Gaius, all of her family's dead. However, Avelina has an idea that she thinks will solve that problem, at least for the painting. The kids go off to get the painter while you go and collect Gaius and his daughter. He's fine with doing anything that helps his daughter, and even though Allie doesn't really want to do a family portrait without her siblings, since the kids ask, she's willing to pose with her father for it. Avelina's idea for getting Allie's siblings into the picture was pretty smart. She gets the core of the diamond weapon that had the minds of Allie's siblings stored inside of it, and she uses it to summon them for the painting that turns out pretty good. The kids got you something for helping out too. It's a pink seashell that Magina says is actually very rare. And by rare, she means expensive, so it'll be perfect for Tataru's necklace. But she probably won't even be thinking about the necklace since her mind is definitely on all of the money she's gonna make once the deal with Gaius is finished. With all of the work the Warrior of Light has done for Tataru's business, people have been ordering her products like crazy. In other words, Tataru's about to be super rich, and her employees from Thavnir have become super busy. Some of them, like Hasdad, have been working behind the scenes doing things like shipping products and stuff, so it's not all that often that you'll see them around the shop. And it's gotten worse for the staff since the business is doing so well. Some of the employees do think that the rise of business may not be the best thing, since Tataru's products are built to last, which means once people buy them, there's really no reason to come back. That kind of thinking shows why Tataru's in charge, because she undoubtedly has some ideas on how to keep her old customers happy. Since she's been getting to watch Tataru work up close and personal, Magina thinks that she's come up with a few ideas of her own. She wants to make new uniforms for the researchers around Charlian, and she told Tataru about this potentially untapped market. But the Lalafell wasn't all that excited about the idea. She told Magina to do some more research and tell her what she finds out about this whole new market, but the shy woman has been procrastinating a bit. Plus, random people can't just go around Charlian questioning people, since the place doesn't really give people free reign to do whatever they want when they feel like it. They wouldn't even let her into Labyrinthos at all, so she decided that the Studium would be the best place to talk to some of the researchers. She set up an appointment, but she's scared to go, so the Warrior of Light, who is never too busy to do unpaid labor, agrees to go with her, and Hasdad comes along so he can figure out what supplies he'll have to get to make this new batch of gear. It only takes a little bit of conversation with a few people to realize why Tataru never bothered trying to make products for the researchers. There are so many different fields of study and each one has unique wants and needs, so there's no one-size-fits-all bit of studium gear that can be made, so it'll take way too much time and effort to make gear that'll only work for a handful of people, which means there's no profit in it, and if there's no profit, Tataru won't do it. Magina's kinda bummed that the idea didn't work, but Hasdod's pretty sure that Tataru told her to look into it so she can understand what it means to fail something. That's also something that the Hannish people's religion always taught them. Hardship builds character, and that type of thinking is what got them through the final days. The fact that she hadn't even thought about applying the teachings from her own religion since she's been surrounded by all of these different cultures of Sharlayan bothers Magina a bit. It's like she's been losing a part of herself ever since she left home. Hasdod feels the same way, and he thinks it may be time for them to go back to Thavnir. They've been sending money back home to help rebuild after all of the damage that came from the final days. But that's not a real substitute for being there and helping their people in person. Since it's really bothering them, they decide to talk to Tataru about it. When Magina tells Tataru about her failed mission, it turns out that the whole mission was in fact an experiment to let the woman see what it feels like to fail. That way she can build a better business mind in the future. As for their homesickness, Tataru understands, and she doesn't feel like they're betraying her by wanting to go home. Turns out she's sending stuff to Palakistan anyway, so that'll be the perfect opportunity for the two of them to go home and decide whether or not they want to stay for good or come back and work. Of course she wants you to handle the delivery because of course she would use you to do work whenever you're around. So the three of you hop back over to Thavnir after you all check on the progress of Tataru's secret gift. With all of the stuff you collected on your trips, all that's left to do is to get the thing put together, and it should be done by the time you all get back. When you get to Razat Han, Magina and Hasdod take a bit of time to walk around the city before you all head back to their village. The elder is happy to see them and to hear how well they've been treated. Hasdod's happy to see that stuff hasn't changed all that much since he's been gone, and his worries about coming home and feeling out of place didn't come true. He did feel guilty for abandoning his people, but the elder said that he should have never felt like he abandoned them by going away, especially since he keeps sending them money. In all honesty, him being there in person wouldn't have helped all that much, since there's really no hope of restoring the village. Too many people died during the final days for it to ever go back to the old days. They have to all grow and change, but they don't really know what they can become. Their original purpose had been to maintain their holy sites around Thavnir, but they realized when stuff got bad that they weren't really equipped for that. But they do have traditions that they have to keep relevant and pass on, so they have to figure out how to do that in this post-final days world. Most of the villagers are also craftsmen, and with their skill, unique style, and having so many of their people spread around the world after they fled during the final days, Magina, putting some of Tataru's business training to work, comes up with a plan to get the people of Palakistan partnered with Tataru's shop. If they could use their connections to sell Hannish amulets around the world, they could bring a steady source of income to the village and get things to their people that'll remind them of their home and heritage no matter where they are. It's a good idea if Tataru approves of it, so you all head back to Sharlayan to see if the woman likes it enough to sign off on it. When you make it back to the city, the necklace is ready, so you all head off to meet Tataru to give her a gift and to hit her with Magina's idea. She thinks the idea is a great way to expand her business, which means it can make her money, so it's perfect. And since the trip helped them get over their homesickness, Magina and Hasdod are ready to get back to work after you all give Tataru a gift. When she sees that it's her mother's gemstone, she's super excited since she thought she'd never see it again. It was part of a family heirloom that her grandmother had given to her mother on her wedding day, and one that her mother had been planning on giving to her. But when her dad's business went under, they had lost that along with everything else. Losing everything had ended up being the best thing that could have ever happened to her, because it made her take a job that had her meet a young miner named Menphilia, who invited her to join the Path of the 12, which eventually led to all of the adventures that she's been on with you and the Scions. And just because you're heading off to the other side of the world doesn't mean your days of adventuring together are over, because she plans on using you again when she inevitably expands her business to the new world. This concludes the story of Tataru's grand endeavor. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, comment, share it, and subscribe. Donate to the channel if you can, and I'll see you all next time.